When you take a lot of supplements, you want to make sure that your kidneys are not being damaged. Number one is when something helps kidney function, it's important. Number two is kidney health is one of the biggest killers in the developed world. Number one is cardiovascular, cancer, but kidney is definitely up there. I think it's pretty sure it's in the top 5. Hey everyone, this is a special episode of the Joe Cohen Show where I'll be going over my daily regimen of 70 plus supplements. You're listening to part 3 where I cover supplements 10 to 17 in my mood regimen. In parts 1 and 2, I went over my first 9 supplements, game changers as I like to call them, which include 5-HTP, butyrate, and thiamine. If you haven't done so yet, once you're done listening to this episode, feel free to check out part 1 and 2 to learn more about the supplements I take for mood. Next up is Betaine. So I would say that we're starting to get to not the game changers, just things that improve mood but weren't game changers, but I take it for other reasons. So Betaine is good for dopamine, serotonin. I would not be able to replace this with 5-HTP or rhodiola or butyrate or methylfolate or curcumin or EGCG, green tea extract, things like that. Because I take niacin, which steals away methyl groups, I want to make sure I'm getting enough methyl groups in my supplement and diet. So it's important for cardiovascular system, including homocysteine, methylation, methionine. So it takes homocysteine and makes methionine from there. It improves HRV. That is something I noticed. Good for cognitive health, increases myelin, liver health. That's what's actually found on the supplement container, meaning the what it shows that it's good for. Kidney health, glucose balance, muscle and exercise performance, and those are the reasons that I take that. I take 1 gram a day, and I find that is, good enough for what I need. Vitamin B12, not a game changer, but I do find that there's a mood improvement, and so I put it under mood. Increases dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, SAMe. Reduces homocysteine, again, which if I didn't take things to reduce my homocysteine would be higher, so a benefit for me. You want to get it checked. You want to see what your genetic predisposition is. You want to see what your MTHFR gene is. Good for energy, mitochondrial function, cognitive health, increases myelin. Adequate intake is important for verbal fluency, processing speed, sustained attention, and working memory. And there's actually studies to show that getting enough could help prevent gray hair. So if you're graying, then you might be deficient in B12 or methylfolate or some other things. But as far as the mood supplements, those are the 2 that are related to this. There's some in Joe's Mood Daily, but I didn't put a lot because of the potential negatives. There's evidence that vitamin B12 increases lung cancer and colorectal cancer risk and maybe prostate cancer. However, small amounts will not increase your cancer risk. If you need larger amounts, that is a personal thing that you have to figure out for yourself, and that's where you can take extra amounts. I do take extra amounts personally. Again, if it's something you have to weigh the pros and cons. What are your predispositions? If you have a family history of cancer, then that would change the equation tremendously. It's something that if you want to take extra dosage or higher amounts, I would recommend speaking to someone who really knows about this stuff, understands, can take your genetic predispositions into account, can take your family history and things of that nature. We do have a lifestyle risk assessment for different kinds of cancer risk, so I recommend doing that. Again, you want to always have a doctor that you can speak to that will help you work through your health issues and things like that, but I'll just tell you how I do it for myself using self-decode. I, let's say lung and colorectal cancer, right? So I look at my family history. You don't need self-decode for that. But what I also do is plug in my results to the lifestyle analyzer, which takes into account family history, and it tells me what my lifestyle and family history risk is overall. And so I know my risks for cancers are lower than average based on my family history, based on the lifestyle risk assessments that I have. So cancer isn't the number one thing that I'm interested in, and then I just see okay, what is my need for B12? How much is it helping me? And do the benefits outweigh the risks? So that's, everybody has to make that calculation. Whereas other people see a negative and they run for the hills. It's I can't take anything with potential negative. Everything has a potential negative, and you have to balance those negatives with the positives. So like I said, methylfolate and B12 are not things you want to just take willy-nilly because it can increase certain cancer risks. Especially, for example, if you had these cancers before, you want to be super careful. I would not recommend them if you've had any of these cancers before. If you had cancer before in general. So that's why I bring up these negatives. I always think it's important to understand what you're getting into. And again, there could be other negatives that I have not found or that might come out later. So there's always a risk, but we didn't put a lot of B12 in Joe's Mood Daily. There's a couple times the RDA, maybe 3 times the RDA. So enough that you won't be deficient, but not enough to cause cancer. Next up is ashwagandha. So this one actually makes a big difference in the extraction that you use. I don't recommend KSM, which is useless. I think it's placebo. I recommend Shodan. We use that extraction that works. Which ashwagandha you use makes a huge difference. And in Joe's Mood Daily, we use the right extraction that has good effects. The reason I take it again is mainly because of mood, but I do notice a serotonergic effect. I do notice some GABA effects, and those are the main mechanisms of action. I don't find that it's as strong as some of the others I mentioned, so I wouldn't call it a game changer. But the reason I include it is because of many other effects that it has that some of the other things do not have, including improving cognitive function, improves reaction time, myelin, executive function, attention, spatial processing, all things that I'm interested in, improves sleep quality, longevity. Again, when I say longevity, none of these things are proven with clinical trials of, 90 years to prove that people are living longer with ashwagandha. I'm talking about animal studies, mechanistic studies. What are studies talking about? They generally see this as a longevity agent that is, again, based on the information that we have. That's what I mean when I say longevity. It helps with testosterone and libido. It helps with muscle performance, including muscle mass, muscle strength, muscle recovery, lowers creatine kinase, means that it's helping with muscle recovery. Good for the cardiovascular system, improvements in LDL, heart rate, glucose balance, inflammation, exercise performance in terms of power, and thyroid function as well, including TSH, T4, and T3. So those are all things that I care about, and that's why I take ashwagandha. I put 120 milligrams of ashwagandha in Joe's Mood Daily. That's kind of like the minimum. If you really want a lot more ashwagandha, you can buy a supplement and take it with Joe's Mood Daily. It's not a problem. But 120 milligrams is kind of like the minimum effective dosage, and that's why it's in Joe's Mood Daily. Just to go back with the ashwagandha, I didn't take ashwagandha in the past because I tried the KSM and I didn't notice any effect. And then at a certain point when I was like, I'm going to try everything out there for mood, I said, I'm going to try every version of ashwagandha, and I megadosed every version. And that's when I figured out, okay, so KSM was just junk and these other ones are actually good. So sensorial or Shodan, or it has to be the right extract in general, so you have to extract it in a certain way. And again, Joe's Mood Daily has that. Next up is B6 pyridoxine. I've noticed a significant, a relatively decent impact with B6. Now, I wouldn't say that it's a game changer or anything like that, but one thing I do notice pretty strongly is that it increases GABA and reduces glutamate. Supposedly it increases dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, but those pale in comparison to the GABA and glutamate receptors based on what I can tell. It's also good for sleep, cardiovascular health, kidney function, inflammation, and skin health, and it has some antifungal properties as well, and gut health. So those are some of the reasons why I take it. And in terms of cardiovascular, turns homocysteine into cysteine, and cysteine then goes into glutathione, which is important. Some people take it for sleep to improve dreaming. One of the reasons I mentioned kidney function a lot is it's something that I really care about. When you take a lot of supplements, you want to make sure that your kidneys are not being damaged. Number one is when something helps kidney function, it's important. Number two is kidney health is one of the biggest killers in the developed world. Number one is cardiovascular, cancer, but kidney is definitely up there. I think it's pretty sure it's in the top 5. And it's one of those things that if your kidneys are not working, a lot of other things in your body can be off as well. For example, your phosphorus goes up, which contributes to cardiovascular disease. Your kidneys are not detoxing as well. And there's kind of like a lot of nefarious effects if your kidneys are not optimal, and they can cause issues with a lot of other things in the body. Kidney health is one of the important things that I care about. Here's some statistics with kidney disease. 1 in 7 adults have kidney disease, which is huge, right? That same number doesn't exist for liver, especially if you don't drink alcohol or have fatty liver. So liver is just like, don't have fatty liver, don't be overweight, don't have excess visceral fat. And there's genetic reports on that stuff and how to, not have that. But that stuff is like a solved problem. If you live a healthy lifestyle, if you do, healthy behaviors, maybe take a couple supplements, you cannot have fatty liver, right? So don't have fatty liver, don't drink alcohol, don't take any medication that damages your liver. Liver problem solved. Kidneys, on the other hand, you could do a lot of things right and you could still have kidney issues later on. And for me personally, I eat a high protein diet in part because I cannot eat grains and beans for reasons that I've discussed ad nauseum, but essentially I get inflammation from those. And so because I have a high protein diet, I do think that it's putting extra strain on my kidneys, and also the fact that I have a lot of muscle and that I work out. These two things do put strain on kidneys, and because of that, I feel like I want to make sure my kidneys are protected. Again, it's also one of the top killers. It's also very important that if it's not functioning as well, then it could harm other parts of the body. Yeah, and as I was saying, 1 in 7 adults have kidney disease, like kidney disease. And the scary thing is that 90% of those people don't know they have it. That's a direct quote from the CDC, right? It's literally, like, this is not alternative or anything like that. 1 in 7 adults in the United States has kidney disease. 90% of those people don't know they have it. And adults is in people over the age of 18. I think that's a crazy number. And the fact that 90% of those people don't know they have it, and I've spoken to doctors who also said, yeah, most of the time we tell people they have a kidney problem. They're like, wait, what? I feel fine. Right? There's no problem. And a lot of times, doctors won't even flag it. So it's one of those things that can hit you unexpectedly. And so making sure that you're taking things that help kidney function is very important. And so everything that I do, I check against kidney function. Not everything necessarily is amazing for kidney function. There are a few things that I do that are, not ideal for kidney function, but you got to pick your battles here, right? And so, but I do try to make sure that 90% of the things that I include in my regimen are at least friendly to kidneys or very good for it. And so that's why I speak about kidney function a lot. Next up is vitamin C. I don't notice any strong impacts from vitamin C. I haven't done the best megadosing experiments with vitamin C, in part because I'm a little afraid of oxalates, so getting kidney stones and things like that. I don't think I noticed any super strong effects, but when you look at the research, vitamin C does a lot of things, and so it's important for serotonin, dopamine, BH4, BDNF, norepinephrine, GABA, NMDA antagonism, GSK3 beta, sodium, potassium channels, nitric oxide, pathway inhibition, and it's an antioxidant. Those are the ways that it improves mood. Don't worry if you don't understand those things. I'm just listing it off for people who do understand them. It improves cognitive function like reaction time and myelin. It's useful for cardiovascular health by reducing ApoB, LDL, based on a meta-analysis. It's not a very strong one. It's only 8 milligrams per deciliter for LDL. It can improve sleep quality, kidney health, antifungal, good for the mitochondria, skin health, bone health, immunity, inflammation, thyroid, and gut. Those are some of the reasons that I include vitamin C. Other things are Bacopa. So again, that is for mood. That makes a difference what extract you take. I find the Bacopa extract is really important. That is in Joe's Mood Daily. I do notice the serotonin effects. Supposedly it has a bunch of other effects that I don't notice, including CREB, BDNF, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, dopamine, MAOA inhibition, serotonin receptors, IP3, and it's an antioxidant. Now, it could be the reason why I don't notice the difference in the other ones is because there's different formulations and different extractions. The Bacopa is good for serotonin, but I'm assuming it also impacts the other mechanisms, just maybe not as strongly. It's also very good for cognitive function, reaction time, processing speed, memory, attention, and working memory. It's also useful for hair, longevity, kidney health, and thyroid. Those are some of the benefits. Moving on, we have L-theanine. I take it for mood, even though, again, I don't notice any strong effects from it. This has a unique mechanism in that it works on the dopamine production and transport, the DRD1 receptor, BDNF, GABA, norepinephrine, serotonin, and AMPA activation. I have a feeling that AMPA activation and NMDA receptor activation are some of the main areas where it improves mood, and I think some people really benefit from that. I think me in particular, I can't really notice the difference because that is not my source of mood issues, so it's not something that I notice a strong impact from. It can improve cognitive function, reaction time, and attention. Good for longevity, flu prevention, HRV, sleep quality, and kidney health. Next up is saffron. So saffron, I would say, is something that I'm not sure that I even want to keep in my regimen. I kind of been toying with it for half a year, keeping it in, excluding it. And it's mainly because I don't think it's as strong as some of the other ones, and I don't think it has as much benefits as some of the other things have. It does have some serotonergic effects, and I do notice that it's just not as strong as other things, even the Bacopa or Ashwaghanda or anything like that. So I do like Bacopa and Ashwaghanda. I think they also have more other beneficial effects. Just to be clear, the Bacopa is in Joe's Mood Daily as well. I didn't put in saffron and Zembrin because I didn't feel like the effects were strong enough, and those are very expensive ingredients. I didn't want to make the formula too expensive for not a good enough effect, right? So I felt like, if somebody wants to get that on their own, they can. On its own, it's expensive on its own, and just adding those two things would have made the formula quite expensive without any clear effect. I'm not even clear. I want to keep these in my regimen very much 50-50 or even less than 50-50. But essentially, there is some cardiovascular benefits, some cognitive function, vision, libido, immunity, and physical performance. But to be honest, I haven't really noticed strong impacts from saffron in any way, shape, or form. I do notice some mood effects. It's just not as good as the other ones. Zembrin, this does have a unique mechanism of action with the PDE4 inhibition. It does work on serotonin. I do notice that. And I like it. It's just, again, not as good as the other ones. I take this really more for cognitive function, to be honest, but it is more, as a mood thing, so I put it in the mood section. There's some research to show that it can improve working memory, long-term memory, wakefulness, and attention. It could potentially be good for the kidneys and inflammation. There isn't a lot of information on Zembrin, which is also a reason that I don't like it. It's a sclerotium extract. There's not a lot of information on it. Most of the reason why I'm taking it is because there's more research on PDE4 inhibitors, like the drugs that do that. And so because it has that mechanism of action, I assume it's going to have some of those benefits, but there's no direct research really showing that it's good except for mood and maybe cognitive function. So not a lot of research, and I don't think it's a game changer or anything. Doesn't have too many things that I noticed that are good about it. So not clear that I am going to keep those things. That's my mood part of my regimen. You could get access to my regimen by joining my community at thejoecohenshow.com. There's still so much to go over, so make sure to subscribe for more content like this, where I will be going over other parts of my regimen like energy production, cognitive function, sleep, and many more. Now, just for the mood stuff, if you don't want to take all these supplements, there's a lot of them that are not going to have as strong of an impact. That is exactly why I built Joe's Mood Daily. It's 2 pills. A lot of people find that even 1 pill is good enough. So it's really 1 pill, but it's a way to really streamline the number of pills that you take. I take 70 pills a day with more ingredients than 70, but it's like 70 pills a day, and I want to figure out how to reduce them, and I will reduce them by either getting personalized supplements that Self-Decode offers, so getting them in less pills. But right now I'm kind of still doing a lot of experiments, so I want to take as many things as I can separately. The only thing I don't is Joe's Mood Daily, because those are the things that I already know I'm keeping in my regimen. Hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe, please like, please review, whatever it is. YouTube you like, iTunes review it, and this way I will do more of it if I see that people are really liking this stuff.